So my idea is to do a documentary on possession and paranormal activity within households and churches and those other things. It's going to be a kind of documentary about this family that moved to a new house, and the young girl starts acting a bit strange, and the vicar's called in, a possession happens, and it's going to be kind of done in the form of interviews with the parents and with the vicar, and there's going to be kind of cuts to the all the events acted out.
My name is Asha Ray. I'm an estate agent and I have no religion.
No? Any views on paranormal life or ghosts?
I'm very sceptical, don't really believe in it.
My name is Harold Pennington. I'm retired, but my background is nursing, and for many years I was a priest.
And so your religious beliefs now?
Not really sure.
Okay. And your viewpoint when it comes to ghosts and...
Well, I have done exorcisms in the past. I've had quite a lot of experience.
I'm Colin Lyne. I'm retired. I go to church. I believe in Christianity. Whether I go to C of E or Catholic Church is almost dependent upon who the vicar is and what sort of religion he believes in. And I don't believe in ghosts.
Okay, what were you before you retired?
I was a stockbroker.
Lorraine Line. I was a nurse by background. I believe in Christ, and I also believe in spirits.
I'm Samantha Ray, and I was an estate agent. I'm now a preschool assistant. I'm a Christian. I don't believe any church is the right church, but I do believe in God. And I do think there is something.
And you've got a sore throat, just so everyone knows.
I have a sore throat.
You've got a job.
With the exorcisms you've done, do you feel some of them were imagined, and do you feel some of them were real?
Yes, I think that I'd go along with that. So, I mean, because it's not something concrete, you can't prove one way or the other, but I do feel that the majority were, in a sense, you were reversing a psychological process, which will stuff all in Latin, holy water and crucifixes and God knows what. And I remember being terrified at one point because he went before me, and all of a sudden all of these huge wires, that electricity wires and things, come flying at me. I thought I was in the middle of a horror film. You don't just go in cold and start to wave crucifixes and things around. You actually you behave almost like a detective, and you have to go and interview people. You've got to sort of suss things out and get a background on what it is that's going on, what's happening. And I would say that probably 90 to 95% of the people who come to the church for this service, at somewhere along that road, there are drugs.
Are you interested in paranormal? Would you read books on it? Would you watch a film on it, a documentary about it? Is it something that interests you?
Yes,
Yes, it's a fascinating subject, especially when you've had certain experiences. It's like I experienced these things.
Yeah, well, whilst I'm very sceptical, it's some of the best films I've ever seen and some of the books I've read are really, really interesting. It's the best films like Paranormal Activity, which is the series of those. If you immerse yourself in the environment that they're in and the and just take it and get yourself immersed into it, it really does shock you, really does surprise you. The Exorcist is a really frightening film.
Absolutely.
I've never watched it. I'd be terrified.
It is a really classic film, and I'm sceptical, but I still watch it and cringe, thinking, "My God, this is frightening."
Believe in ghosts, you'd still enjoy a film about them.
Definitely,
You'd still get scared.
I don't know about enjoy. I'd be terrified.
But you'd find you'd watch it.
Yeah.
So a paranormal documentary about exorcism, would you watch it for kind of the interest and the intrigue surrounding that subject and kind of to gather information and for the knowledge that comes with it, or would you watch it to be scared?
A bit both for me. I like the fact that it's because it's clearly the people that are in these documentaries are genuinely believing that what's happened has happened, that it's unexplainable. And that in itself, when they're sensible people and they come across as sensible people, is entertaining, as far as I'm concerned. But at the same time, if it is when they're going around late at night and they're filming in the pitch black with these handheld cameras and all the rest of it, that's the sort of thing that does frighten you as well.
And if it wasn't eerie, it might lose your interest a bit, mightn't
If
it?
it was just very bland and factual, if it was like this, Mr. and Mrs. Smith sitting here talking about the experience they had, it's interesting, but you wouldn't necessarily record it. You wouldn't
But
go out to buy it.
I don't like being scared at films, so I probably,
You don't go.
if it was too scary, I would probably say, okay, right, enough now, and go. I'd be interested in the subject,
we're looking at a kind of a balance between information and general kind of interest, but also that creepy element to a documentary.
Create the
Yeah.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
But if it's a documentary, you're not going to be frightened out of your wits,
No.
are you?
No. I wouldn't watch anything for the fear element. I think because of the background, I would be watching things out of pure interest and fascination to see what other people had experienced and what they were doing about it and so on.
Okay. So documentaries that you see on Channel 4 or Bio Channel or whatever, how much of that do you think is genuinely real? Or how much do you think is being kind of fabricated and heightened for dramatic effect?
They obviously pick out the best bits, don't they?
Yeah, it's for entertainment value, a lot of it, isn't it?
So,
I can't say I've watched many of them. I mean, the sort of things that I would and do watch are things like Afterlife with Leslie Sharp and, things like that. And there was also a good
Randall
series,
Hopkirk.
Randall Hopkirk, yeah, but there was a good series also with Martin Shaw, where he was the priest exorcist. Yeah, it was very good. And that sort of made me think a lot of what I'd been doing in the past.
Unfortunately, I think I'm much too much of a sceptic. Therefore, I don't really watch horror films because I might laugh,
Okay.
and therefore I don't go and watch horror films.
What about a horror
The
film with the
Exorcist was
suspense?
brilliant.
Yeah, and that I'm the same as you. I'm fairly sceptical about things, but the suspense that you get in a film or a documentary where it's building up something and the lighting's right and it's all a bit creepy, does that not get you?
I'd rather watch a war film.
Would you? That's interesting that you say that you might laugh at it, because I was playing around the idea of doing a kind of horror comedy. It sounds like a weird combination, but you probably haven't seen the Scary Movies. That might have been the actual Scary Movie franchise, but parodying paranormal shows. So I don't know if you've seen Most Haunted or Ghost Hunters or anything along that lines, but kind of not taking the mickey out of investigations
Ghost
or whatever.
Hunters was a perfectly good film.
It's definitely something. Do you think it's something you could make funny?
Definitely. I mean, you used to watch Bewitched in the old days, and that sort of, when she was casting spells and doing all sorts of things. And there's lots of films that I think are spoofs on that. Yeah,
do you know
there
people
are
like
spoof
that?
things, and I mean, I would enjoy that sort of entertainment. It wouldn't, even though I've been involved in the what I would class as the real
So
thing.
you won't be offended.
No, not in the least. I'd probably sort of might sneer and think, well, if you'd been involved in something a bit more, you might not take that attitude. But no, it wouldn't worry me. I'd find it entertaining.
Okay.
So to you as a non-believer in anything like this, obviously with your job you go around lots and lots of different houses with lots of different atmospheres. Have you ever been anywhere where you've wanted to get out quickly?
There was one property where it just didn't feel right to see it, and I didn't hear any noises. There was no particular smell. There was nothing, but it's very much on its own. There's no neighbours, so you could shout as loud as you like, and nobody would hear you. And it was one of those where I just didn't feel particularly comfortable and kept waiting for somebody to come around the corner and say, "What are you doing here?" or whatever. So I was in and out fairly quick.
So is there any kind of stereotypical locations you'd expect to see in a paranormal documentary?
Somewhere in the basement of churches.
Yeah, but you see,
That's where you'd expect.
in reality, though, most of these things, and of course, when you read about things and when you're involved in them, things tend to happen in normal, domestic.
Bulk standards.
Yeah, they're not haunted, sort of weird Gothic old houses and things. They're in normal, everyday situations, like the front room or the kitchen or whatever. They're just normal places. You don't have to go to a creepy the sort of thing that you see on television, because that they set the scene which is probably not real. You know, it's
Yeah,
what they expect us to feel.
Yeah,
Well, that's
why-
that's what we imagine,
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
very interesting. That's why I think
Yeah.
Paranormal Activity is such a good series of films, because they're modern houses, modern families with young. Yeah, everything's modern and sensible. But then Amityville, where they're doing up the old house in the, and it's just creepy from the outset.
Yeah.
I think I quite
And the
like that as
music
well.
makes it like
It
that
does,
as well.
and then
doesn't
you
it?
set the scene for it, and you know somebody's going to come out. And
Yeah,
yeah.
That's very interesting you should say that. So maybe documentaries that are set around a story that's in a domestic atmosphere, something that's maybe more relatable to you, you'd find scarier than somewhere isolated and
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
you can't imagine yourself in.
Yeah.
It's also because there's something about it. I always think that if there's something about the paranormal, it's something about somebody who was at some point, and the spirit is still there and disturbed. So that's why I think it makes more sense that it's in a normal house, because it's, for me, it's usually I think about it as being somebody who hasn't, who's not settled.
Yeah.
You know, wherever they've gone, they're not settled. There's some sort of.
And there's just as many people like that in council houses as in Gothic houses.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when it is dark and you can't quite make out what is occurring, sudden noises, the suspense when you're not quite sure what's going to happen, when you see the films where they're having a discussion and all of a sudden it goes silent and that person's no longer in the room, the door that opens on its own and you can see it, but the person in the foreground can't see it, so you as the viewer can see it. That sort of thing, that gets me going, because if you immerse yourself in it.
I think a sudden appearance, maybe just as you turn around, there's a face there, and with a loud noise at the same time.
Yeah.
That's
Simple but effective.
Jump.
yeah.
But what's scary for me is if you're in a normal setting, because you can relate to it, and you think, oh God, that could be me, that sort of thing. So if it's in a normal house rather than the spooky churches and stuff.
I think being a mother, watching a documentary about a young girl that gets possessed and hearing the accounts, and obviously you being a father, I don't know how many everyone else has children, but if you're a parent, do you think you're more likely to be almost more in tune with the parents and maybe connect to the situation more?
Yeah, you certainly would be very.
Yeah, but I won't watch films. I won't watch films that are about children that are being possessed or something that happens to the child.
Apart from The Exorcist.
Yeah, The Exorcist I watched, which was probably 20 years ago, and it was fantastic. It was great before I had children. Now I've got children, and whether it's just because cinemas are so much better than they used to be, but we often see them advertised and it's exactly that cliche thing where people move into the house and it's and things start to happen, and that because I can relate it to my children, I don't like it.
So
But it is known that I mean, with children, it's very often young girls, because the majority of poltergeist activity takes place around about puberty. We know this from sort of facts that have been
Research, I suppose.
research, yeah. And most poltergeist activity that goes on, it's usually the focus is the young girl who's coming into puberty.
I was just going to say, in general, is it women that would be more, would women believe or be more ready to see something or experience something, do you think? Or is that...
I don't know what statistics show. I only know in my experience, I would say that probably the larger proportion would be females.
Yeah.
But not, certainly, I wouldn't say, it was maybe sort of 55 to 60%, but I mean, certainly men aren't cut out at all, no. I mean, the majority of exorcisms that I was involved with in Italy, certainly, I can't actually think of a woman that we saw. I think they were nearly all men that we dealt with there.
Because as a target audience, my primary target audience is females. So do you think it's a genre that maybe appeals to females more than males?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I think you're more likely to see women. Well, it depends. If it's a drama documentary that you're talking about making, which it sounds like you are, then I think a woman's more likely to sit down and watch that than a man.
Yeah, probably.
Whereas a film, a scary movie as it were, I think it's probably 50-50.
Okay. If Lorraine or Sam was in bed watching a paranormal documentary, are you likely to join in and just watch it passively?
Yeah, oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it's easy it's easy television, isn't it? It's it's entertaining, and it's got the suspense. It's got a storyline to it. Yeah.
Round things up. Obviously, my documentary is going to be about this girl that gets possessed, and her parents get very worried. I think I'm going to do the parents as kind of quite religious, and so they do turn to the local vicar, and they perform an exorcism. Do you think that the ending should be, everything's fine, everything works out well, or do you think there should be a twist at the end that's like, oh, okay?
Not if you left it as nothing proven, that would get people just thinking, does it really exist?
You know what it would.
Rather than someone saying, oh, well, that's that, got rid of that
it probably
ghost.
would have more effect.
Probably the twist
So,
at the end.
Yeah,
If
the
you're
twist is
thinking-
yeah, definitely the twist. It's because
Okay.
the best things with things like that, in my opinion, for what it's worth, is when you watch it and you get to the end and it's it's been a year, it's been 18 months, and everything's been calm, everything's been quiet,
Yeah.
and then suddenly the very last shot is the child looking like this or looking, and you don't know. The head spins a bit too much, but
Yeah.
something a bit sort of
Yeah.
was that a
Yeah.
a nod to the
Well,
fact
it's
that
Door
Yeah.
slams
Because the
on
very-
its own.
yeah, absolutely
But the
right.
very subject has not got a neat, okay, right, tick,
No.
done that, it's finished, and we know what happened exactly, and it's all over and done with.
It's
Yeah,
all-
it is a mysterious
All cut and
genre
dried,
anyway.
and then you think, oh, that was a waste of time watching
Yeah,
that.
because it's not. It's
And
not
quite
right.
often with good films, at the end, you're left
Yeah.
with that.
Thinking,
Ooh.
and that's
So you want-
So they leave it open for
Yeah,
another
what a
one,
twist
don't
at the end, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
that's
sounds very good.
Well, I just it's just reminded me. I meant to say to you yesterday, Michelle and Jerry. I don't know if she told you, but they had their house blessed by the priest about 5-6 years ago because they were convinced things were entirely good.
We've had our house blessed because we wanted it blessed,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
because we were worried about there being anything there,
Well,
but
I
just.
used to spend my life going around flashing holy water about around houses and things.
So lastly, just for Howard, is there anything reenacting exorcism-wise? Obviously, it's not. I don't know if it's a sensitive subject, and you can do it very wrong. But obviously, I've seen films about it. Films that reenact exorcisms, are they on the money, or is it completely different to what is actually shown in the media?
It's probably completely different to what's shown in the media. I mean, because both churches basically have a set service. Once you've got everything sussed out and you decide, right, we are going to do this, because you just don't go in half-cocked and do an exorcism. You, as I say, you do and make inquiries first before you do anything about it. And you have there is a set service in the same way as you would have for a baptism, but it is a set service.
Is it done in church, or is it only in very extreme cases where it's done in the bedroom?
In Italy, we always did the ones that I've been involved with in the church. In this country, all the ones that I have been involved with have been in the person's home.
Do you think there needs to be a reason why Jessica, the little girl, becomes possessed? Is there like a turning point in your belief or in everyone's belief? Do you think it's something that happens and sneaks into her? Or is there like a moment where it just happens? And do you think it escalates?
It's depending on the background, but sometimes, I'm going by TV, films, it'll be they've moved to a house and that child's in tune with what's ever going on. Or an older child will have found a Ouija board and that's how it's stepped in. It's normally
Yeah, I mean,
on the tin side.
I don't know what the statistics would say, but certainly I think it would sort of probably gradually grow and grow and grow. But as you were saying, at some point there must have been something to trigger it off. But yes, I mean, I remember as a student nurse back home, knew them very well, knew the girl very well, but I mean, her father had died a few months before. They started playing with the Ouija board in the nurse's home, and she claimed to have been in touch with her father, and she ended up going to see a psychiatrist, and she ended up in a mental hospital. She was still in a mental hospital. It's a long time ago now, but the last I knew of her, she was still there. And, you know, but whether this was a psychological thing or a real sort of possession, who's to say?
Yeah, so from your point,
Yeah,
for you making a documentary that we would watch as a collective group, it's, I think, probably 50-50. For me, the fact that something's gone on in that house and they're in tune with the child would work. And I think also if there's a terrible tragedy and that's what sparked it as well, could do. I prefer the former, I think, because that's where the exorcism comes in, and particularly in the house and in that environment. I think, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That was successful.
Good.
And really appreciate it. Thank you.
We get cookies now.